it's a thrill that he's our first guest right here on our new world, in the wonderful world of Disney. And he's one of the top voices in the game for as long as he's been calling games. And the voice of Monday Night Football, Pro Football Hall of Famer, Troy Aikman. Good to see you, Troy. How are you?
Rich, I'm doing great. Good to be on the show. Thank you.
And I appreciate you doing this as well. And it's kind of fitting as well because you were one of the first guys I spoke to when I got back in SportsCenter for 22 years.
Yes. Seems like a year ago.
It does, doesn't it? It sure does, doesn't it? Because so much is going on in our world. So if you don't mind, let me just jump straight in and ask your thought, what went through your head and heart and gut when you heard that Micah Parsons was traded to the Green Bay Packers?
I was surprised. I didn't think it was a possibility that he would be traded. Obviously everybody's followed it. We've heard Jerry's comments on what went into that. I know that Jerry has said that they talked about possibly trading him, back before the draft. My guess is, Rich, that all these teams, they have to talk about what value they might get for any player. So I'm sure there were a lot of conversations with regards to potential trades with a lot of the players on that roster. But, it was, I guess we'll know in time, quite honestly, as to whether or not it was a good trade on the Cowboys' behalf, whether or not the Packers benefited the most from that. I think the key to it, much like all the conversation that has been around this Herschel Walker trade, especially with the Netflix doc, and Jerry mentioned when he announced the trade, it's not so much the picks, it's what you do with the picks. And so time will tell as to who benefited most, just like it did when we made the trade with Herschel and the Minnesota Vikings. But at first glance, I'm not a fan of the trade. These type players are really rare, and you're looking for guys that can rush the passer. And with those draft picks, they'll be looking for someone just like Micah. And then ultimately you come down to the same thing of having to try to work out a contract. So we'll see how that looks, but it could very well be something that I think pushes the Green Bay Packers over the top, much like the trade when we acquired Charles Haley back in 1992.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Charles Haley, Troy, because there was an ESPN article today from Don Van Natta and Jeremy Fowler and a whole host of our colleagues that say that Charles Haley would have flipped Micah off the training table if he saw him lying down on the job, even for a split second in preseason. That's part of the conversation right now as to whether Micah was still in any way, shape, or form somehow welcome in Dallas, as we're back on the ESPN Radio Network with Troy Aikman. Your thoughts on Micah in that locker room or anything like that, about his welcome status in Dallas, Troy?
Well, it's a fair question. Unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that. And the guys now maybe on the team would come out and be a little bit more vocal as to if in fact Micah was a distraction or however he might have been as a teammate. Obviously, when he's on the roster, guys are very guarded as to what they may or may not say. There's no question that the negotiation got personal. The fact that Jerry never even spoke to the agent, and then to say that he typically doesn't negotiate with the agent, that's a first that I've ever heard of. But I sense, Rich, that at that preseason game when Micah was laying down on the training table, that might have been the final straw. And maybe it was orchestrated on Micah's part or his agent's part in trying to make it clear that they were ready to be moved. And again, what that looks like going forward for the Cowboys, what that may look like for the Packers going forward, time is about to tell. And a lot of it, too, is, Micah's an outstanding player, and if he can be as productive as he's been with the Cowboys, he's definitely going to be a key figure for this Packers team. But I didn't realize the back, potentially, could be more. I thought it was more a ploy as to why he wasn't practicing. So that's news to me, and that becomes a concern for a young guy to be dealing with a back issue.
Yeah, me too. Right, because I thought that was Micah positioning for tomorrow when there's a plane when there's a plane to get on. Right, like my back, it's tough for me to sit on the plane, so I'm going to stay home. And now he's in Green Bay, potentially, according to our friend Adam Schefter, needing an epidural to play against the Lions. Yeah. So I guess, how powerful is this, do you think, in the Cowboys locker room, that Micah's gone? And everybody seems to think that that's the end of the Dallas Cowboys 2025 season. How do you think this does position Dallas for that opener against Philadelphia and beyond, Troy?
Well, I said it during our preseason game that the leverage that I felt Micah had with the Cowboys was the simple fact that I didn't think they could win without him. And that's a bold statement, I realize, because players do get hurt, and then to imply that the season is over is not fair to those other guys on the team. But I just think that he is such a disruptive player, and for a defense that had their issues and they're going through some changes, to not have a central figure like Micah Parsons that offenses have to worry about is game changing for an offense coming into play against them. I think it was going to be challenging for them in a lot of ways regardless, but now even more so. And I think that of course, that adds more pressure to Dak Prescott and this offense to be able to score points and keep the ball away from the opposing teams. But, I do think this defense that was going to have some concerns going in, those become even more pronounced without a dominant pass rusher like Micah is.
And then let's flip to Green Bay, Troy, because it's not like these prideful athletes and Packers need a vote of confidence from the front office, right? But what a way to hear from those in management to say, we believe now's the time.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and that to me alone is worth the trade. And I wonder what you think.
Yeah,
Troy.
No, I'm a big fan of the Packers and Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst and what he's been able to do. And I know last year when the season ended, based on 2 years ago, what they were able to do with a road playoff win against the Cowboys, and then it just didn't really translate into much last year. And as Brian said, the time is now to start putting themselves in a position to win championships. And so this acquisition, it certainly sends a message throughout the entire locker room that, hey, if you had any doubts to begin with, this should eliminate those as far as what we're here about, what we're here for, and what this organization is about. So I like the Packers a lot. That division, of course, is extremely challenging. But with all the changes that have occurred, you look at Minnesota and the fact that J.J. McCarthy is making his first start this next Monday night, and what's that going to look like for him? The fact that the Lions, who have really dominated the division the last few years, and now they lose both coordinators. The Bears are certainly somewhat in a rebuilding mode. So I think when you look at it as to where the Packers are, obviously competitive division, but I like them and where they're at right now as they go into this year. And then you add a Micah Parsons to that defense and what he's capable of doing, and a defense that I think was really on the rise last year and did a lot of really positive things. I think it looks really good, bodes well for them. And that now, again, we go back to will Micah play this week?
Yeah.
And if not, when will he play? So that's a big question mark, of course.
Last one for you on this subject matter, Troy, before we move on. And it's the third rail question, if you don't mind, that Cowboys fans are wondering about. And that is that at this stage, that Jerry and the rest of the Jones family and those in ownership are more concerned about the Cowboys as a brand and a business than winning another championship. And I wonder, and how this trade is the latest indication of that. How does that hit you? What do you say to fans who say something like that?
Well, I'm not sure I can really say much, Rich, to be honest with you, because I saw Jerry talk about the fact that the having the Cowboys as a discussion point is meaningful to him, and if people aren't talking about the Cowboys, then he'll do things to stir it up. So he kind of walked into that and has given the impression that supersedes winning, and I think in some ways, I'm sure that Jerry and the Jones family and everyone is tired of talking about the fact that they haven't been to a championship game, let alone a Super Bowl in 30 years. But so then when you deflect that then essentially the valuation of your franchise, or the attention and the exposure, or the drama, or the, as Jerry said, the fact that the Cowboys are a soap opera 365 days a year, that then becomes the scoreboard instead of winning and losing on the field. And do I think that winning is not important to Jerry Jones? Not at all. I think Jerry wants to win more than anything else, and I think that he's very exhausted of the fact that this team, although they've won a lot of regular season games, as you know, it is remarkable how much they've won in the regular season over the last 20, 25 years, but yet they've only won 4 playoff games, and that's hard to stomach.
And so in terms of Troy Aikman here on the Rich Eisen Show, you're going to see Green Bay first up on the Monday night schedule when the Eagles visit Lambeau in Week 10. Are the Eagles the team to beat in the NFL again this year, you think, Troy?
It's an easy one to say yes to for me, because as someone who has won some Super Bowls, I do think, until proven otherwise, they're the team to beat. But with that said, I just think it's such a great organization. It's well run. I say it every time we have an Eagles game. I think Howie Roseman has done just a terrific job of, it seems like whenever they're really loaded, and yet in the middle of the season they do things that just make themselves stronger. I just think he manages that roster as well as anybody in the league, and I like that staff. I love what they've done with what Nick Sirianni has done. Vic Fangio coming back as defensive coordinator, and I like that. Of course, Jalen Hurts, everything's kind of built around him, and then with what Saquon Barkley has done, and there's not much not to like about the Eagles. I do feel that they're the best in the NFC right now.
And I think the last time the Eagles made the Super Bowl and lost is how so many people are viewing the Lions this year, Troy. And by that I mean the Lions losing both coordinators. The Eagles, last time that happened in a Super Bowl run, they took a step back, and everyone's kind of assuming, for the lack of a better phrase, that the Lions are about to suffer a similar fate, that Ben Johnson might have been Jared Goff's secret sauce. What's your opinion on that, Troy?
Well, and I'm glad you asked that. I will say also, I mentioned the Eagles and talking about their staff. They lose Kellen Moore. So, here you've got Jalen Hurts going through that again.
Right.
I hate it for him, as many different play callers as he's had to work with. But your point with the Lions, it's real. I've been there. I've been there when you lose a defensive coordinator. We lost Dave Wanstead after our first Super Bowl, and then the next year you lose Norv Turner, and those coaching matters. There are some. There might be a guy in Dallas who doesn't appreciate coaching maybe as much as I do, but I think coaching really matters. And so I do think that for this season, the Lions, excuse me, if anyone can overcome it, it's Dan Campbell. But that is challenging, and it'll be a different feel for Jared Goff. I've heard his comments. You've been used to working with a guy like Ben Johnson and what they had going, and then you've kind of got to rebuild that with someone else. And it's not just about knowing the offense. It's about it's knowing when to call the plays and set things up, and really be a quarterback-friendly system. Ben Johnson did that for Goff, and that'll be the challenge for the Lions. Can they kind of regroup with different staff and play at the level that we've seen from them? But it is hard, and it's also hard when you get disappointed the way that they have in the postseason, to come back year after year and to continue to be competitive and play at that level.
Yeah, and you and Joe are seeing Detroit Week 3 on Monday Night Football at Baltimore. What a great game. Yeah. That's good. A paint-swapping affair, certainly on that Week 3 Monday Nighter. The AFC, Ravens, Chiefs, and Bills. That's the conversation. Who's going to join the fourth chair? Is it as simple as that, Troy, do you think?
Well, the crazy, I would like to think that Cincinnati will be there. We had them in the preseason, and for Joe Burrow to essentially have what could have been an MVP season last year and not even make the postseason. And you just, I'm as big a Joe Burrow fan as there is on this planet. And I just would hate to see him not reach that level. He's been to a Super Bowl, but this is a championship caliber quarterback, and I hope he's able to do it at some point. But the AFC is really compelling in the sense that there's some good teams that you just mentioned. You got Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, and he's won MVPs. And then, of course, last year with Josh Allen winning the MVP, and Buffalo's been good and knocking on the door, but nobody has been able to really unseat the Kansas City Chiefs. And with that, there's a story being written, and ultimately, I do believe that quarterbacks are judged on championships, and we've got some really great players at that position in that conference that just cannot get over the hurdle of Patrick Mahomes. So I'm as anxious as anyone to see if Kansas City can keep that run going, and maybe will there be someone that kind of comes out of left field and surprises some people. But if you're Buffalo, Cincinnati, Baltimore, I don't know how you went through this offseason not looking back and saying, man, we've left some things on the table or haven't yet been able to achieve the things that we're capable of, and it's all because of that team in Kansas City. And what have they done this offseason in order to get themselves over the top?
Nah, the Chiefs, the first team to win back-to-back to make it to the Super Bowl for a three-peat. That said, let's be honest, you played in the Super Bowl. After winning 2 in a row, I was there in that day in Candlestick Park. That was the Super Bowl in that NFC Championship game. Yeah. With all due respect to the San Diego Superchargers, you won it again the year after you lost in that NFC Championship game. Do you think Mahomes is sitting around pissed? He just doesn't say it, doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to wear it. Do you think he's sitting around pissed about whatever that story is being written right now? Troy?
Well, what I think, I've gotten to know Patrick. I wouldn't claim that I'm that close to him, but from what I know of him, I think he's grateful. I think he's grateful that he's in a great organization. He has a great head coach in Andy Reid, and he's been able to accomplish a lot. I can't imagine coming out of Texas Tech that you would think your NFL career would look the way that Patrick Mahomes has. With that said, though, Rich, to your point, I think that it's so hard to get to a Super Bowl, and for him to have won 3 and lost 2, I think you look at it and you say, man, if I could have 5 Super Bowls right now under my belt, and then you're contending as the greatest quarterback of all time, and because those opportunities just are hard to come by. And Tom Brady would say the same thing for the ones that he lost. I mean, he's won 7, won 10. So, but you got to take advantage of those opportunities when they present themselves. So my guess is that's the thing that it probably gnaws on him pretty good, that he's lost a couple. Fortunately for me, I didn't lose one, but I can't imagine what that feeling might be if you had.
Before I let you go, Troy, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you what you think of the Netflix documentary. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's entertaining. It was a walk down memory lane. There were a lot of emotions that came with it. I'm not sure, Rich, it's the definitive story on the 90s Cowboys. Okay. I'm not sure it can be when a central figure in it has editorial rights. So I thought it was good. I've heard from a lot of people. It's reconnected me with a lot of former teammates.
Is that right?
So, what did you think of?
Oh, I mean, it's fascinating, man. It is a memory lane for sure, but you lived it. And I didn't know we had Irv on last week. I had no idea there was a hit out on his life. I mean, did you learn anything through this documentary at all?
No, I don't. Yeah, no. Fortunately or unfortunately, I lived through it all. But yeah, I mean, I tell the story that it was such a crazy time, of course, and I'm at the facility working out, and it was that day when I had learned that there had been a hit. Fortunately, it got spoiled. And then Michael, Michael as well as I do, he's out there running 110s, getting ready for the season, and celebrating as though he just scored a touchdown, and didn't know I was watching him. And part of his greatness is that he was pretty unaffected by a lot of things that other people might have been shooken up about.
I hear you. I don't know if you saw him on the sideline at Miami this weekend. Did you see that?
I did not. I I see him a lot though already. So
well, it's nothing you already didn't know when you see that video. Troy, thanks for the time, man. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate you being my first guest on in the Disney Plus world and back with ESPN. Means a lot, man.
You bet. Thanks, Rich.
We'll chat again soon. That's Troy Aikman. He's going to be doing Monday Night Football once again with Joe Buck.
That's my
right here on the Rich Eisen Show. That's your quarterback.
You see how I smiled when he said he never lost?
By the way, fortunately, I never lost a Super Bowl. Although I will say that was the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The NFC Championship game, the 1994 season into 1995. That was the Super Bowl.